Welcome back. Atheist Underground on TikTok, going live with the Atheist Brunch. Speaking of brunch, got myself a new t-shirt. Went to North Carolina, which is pretty damn religious. They got churches in the parks in North Carolina. Apologies to all the vegetarians out there. Love vegetarians, my favorite people. But I do like to eat meat sometimes. I do pretty good staying off of it, but I can't resist a tasty barbecue once in a while. So I thought this was a funny t-shirt for the show. And I can't wait for the first person to misread it and ask me why I have a Praise the Lord shirt on. But we are live again, going to answer some questions. I wanted to touch on a few subjects first. Thanks to all the followers. We're up to 20,000 followers just about, and a success that I had not anticipated. It's absolutely mind-blowing. Sorry that I can't get to all the comments. We really try. We don't even know how to use TikTok all the way still. We're trying to figure out between us old geezers here. We like go and like find a millennial and like ask them like how to use TikTok completely. So some of the mentions, some of the stitches that people have done, some of the videos that they put together, I haven't even seen. And I will get to that because we discovered a little bit of that today. So hang in there if you're a commenter and you're looking for an answer. Chances are that we will get there sooner or later. And thanks for your patience. I want to mention a couple of trolls really took me to task for calling this America because it's the United States, right? And people are like, well, America's a continent, not really. Whether you're Canadian or Mexican or wherever, Guatemalan, wherever you're from. Yeah, we know that America, and America's not a continent. North America is a continent. South America is a continent. And if you're going to troll me, get your grammar right. America is a country, not a county. All right? This is the United States of America here, and the world calls us Americans. We call ourselves Americans because there's no word for United Statesians. What the fuck are we supposed to say, all right? So if you don't like that, petition your own government to change the name of your country to the United Provinces of Canada or the United... it actually is the United States of Mexico. Did you know that? The real name of that country is the United States of Mexico. But nobody says, oh, don't call us Mexicans, because there's no word, again, for United Statesians. So if you have a better word for that, go ahead and give it to me. But we understand when we say America, we mean the United States of America, and it's not an insult to other North, Central, or South Americans. So get the fuck over it, weirdo. Not all Christians are bad. We know this. I've been doing this a long time, and what we rail against is fundamentalism, evangelism, separation of church and state violations, and the continued effort on the part of would-be theocrats to rewrite history and make this a Christian nation when anybody who read us history book knows this is not a Christian nation. This is a nation of majority Christians that was founded partly on the principle of separation of church and state, so that no state, originally the colonies were basically religious sects. If they weren't colonies built on business, they were colonies built on a different sect of Protestantism. And so in order to get the Constitution ratified, they needed to not piss off one state over the other by pretending that they favored that state's version of Christianity or Protestantism. So the only way that the government to do that was to, completely step away from state-sponsored religion. Now, they could not have anticipated the pluralism that we have here today. There's a few Jews, and they were well hated back in the colonial times, like other minorities were. But they couldn't have anticipated the pluralism that we have in the country today, with literally, thousands of separate religions and a good quarter to a third of the population having no religion at all, or outright being agnostic or atheist. But the fact is that freedom from religion is just as important as freedom of religion. And many presidents have spoken on the fact that to even ask a man about his religious qualifications is un-American when he or she runs for office. So get over it. All Christians aren't bad. The ones that are good are just few and far between, and they are dwindling. I had one commenter say, the Christian left is out here too. We know you are, and we love you. And if you're a real Christian who understands that you just need to keep your faith to yourself and your church and maybe your family, and keep it out of government and keep it out of schools and keep it out of our face, then we need you on our side. We are about equality for everybody, and the fact is that atheists don't have any equality in the country. There's still laws on the books that say that we can't run for office in some states, and that is absolutely un-American and un-Christian. So this is not a Christian country. Stop pretending it is, and stop pretending that I hate all Christians. I don't. I love Christians. My parents are Christians, and my dad not so much. But my mom's a Christian. She's not the greatest Christian, but she's still my mom, and I love her. So good Christians we love. We just don't meet very many of them, and that's a sad fact in the U.S. Toot for good Christians, yay!
Non-crazy cat lady says she likes your shirt.
Oh, thank you. Yes, brand new shirt, and you can get this at Midwood Barbecue in North Carolina. Yummy, yummy food, and a funny, funny shirt.
And then a lot of people saying they like your TikTok.
Thank you for liking the TikTok. We're on our way to 1 million likes, and like I said, 20,000 followers. If we get that, Mr. 20,000 might get a special if I can figure out who exactly it is, or Miss 20,000.
And then Carso57 asks, thoughts on the Pope?
The Pope is, I suppose he's in some ways better than other popes, but until he fixes the real problem with the Catholic Church, again, I don't like to say those words to get us kicked off of TikTok, but until the Catholic Church fixes their problem that they have with the treatment of young people, then the Pope doesn't mean shit to me. He needs to put his foot down, and it's not just the Pope. The Dalai Lama is the same way. Great guy, educated guy. Fix the problems in Tibetan Buddhism before you go around, spouting what a great person you are. So, yeah, Pope, maybe he's a little bit more modern than other popes, but he hasn't addressed the real issues with the Catholic Church. Until he gets around to that, I'm no great fan of the Pope. He's still out there peddling bullshit.
And we're looking for some more questions. So if you have questions
questions not coming right now,
no,
that's all right. I made a mistake, and I do make mistakes on my 60-second rants. God is not a theory in the terms of a scientific theory. I said in one video, I think that the God theory is, you know what I mean? And a lot of people were like, don't use the word theory because it gives them power. On the other side, the creationists are like, sir, God's a theory, just like gravity's a theory, and the Big Bang's a theory, and evolution's a theory. First of all, there's two kinds of theories. There's scientific theory, and then there's just theory in that general way that I used it, mistakenly, admittedly, where, I have a theory that all short, bald people are smarter than everybody else. That's not a scientific theory. That's just my, idea, right? And God is not a theory. It's a fucking guess. And it's not even a good guess. It's the least plausible possibility to the questions of the universe. It's a possibility, and some people have brought that up too. Is God God should be it is a scientific possibility. There's just no evidence for it, so it gets dismissed. It's implausible. More implausible than any other theory that's out there for the existence or for the nature of the universe.
I got a question. So, Lynx Fox asked, generally curious, when did you become an atheist?
I became an atheist during college, probably. I was out of Christianity a little bit before that and went through that typical phase, I think, where a lot of kids do, where you have your own idea about spirituality and personal divinity and being the best you can, and made a quick stop at Unitarianism. But by the time I was done with college, I was absolutely done with believing in a higher power in the sense of a personal God. I do believe in a higher power. It's called virtually everything else that's bigger and more powerful than us, like the universe. Obviously, there's higher powers. None of those are a singular intelligence that has an effect on humanity or cares about you or what you do. That's just silliness.
And then, so Jay, I won't be able to. So Jay said, do you think you'll continue to see a decline in religious belief?
We do see a decline in religious belief. The numbers are in. You can look it up and look at the stats. Every religious denomination is dwindling, except for my people, the mainline Protestants. Last time I looked, anyway, and they're probably dwindling too. But there was a slight uptick, and I think that's because people are sick of the watered-down Christianity that you get at the megachurches, where a shyster pastor just tells you what to believe, and you believe it, and it becomes kind of an identity politics thing that we're seeing on the Christian right, especially. But people are losing the appeal, that the bigotry and the anti-Semitism and the every kid knows somebody who's gay or transgender now. All the young people know people who they like and who they love who are demonized by evangelicals and hardcore fundamentalist Christians. So people who want a more liberal version of Christianity are going back to Congregationalist churches, First Baptist churches from the North, Methodist churches, Episcopalian even, the religions of the founders. None of those people were evangelicals. Most of the smart ones were deists, the ones who wrote the Constitution. The other ones were mainline Protestants. You don't even hear that term anymore. People don't know what that is. But when I grew up, there wasn't any. I never met a creationist till I was like 20, 25, and I came to the Midwest. In Connecticut and Massachusetts, the churches there accept science. No one ever told me that evolution wasn't real. We know that evolution is real. We know how life started on rocky planets. Those questions are pretty much answered. Some of the details along the way are still being filled in, but worldwide accepted scientific fact was not something that my church ever denied. And those kind of churches are the only ones that are going to survive into the future, as people are just sick to death of the hate and the bigotry that comes out of these watered down Christianity megachurch bullshit places. I can't even believe how many people go there and give their money to people like Joel Osteen so he can drive in a fancy car. He doesn't believe in God. Give me a break.
So, those of you who are commenting, appreciate the questions. But if you could put it in the Q&A, there should be a little question mark next to the comments. If you put it there, we'll definitely get it. Anthropomorphized, asked. They just said, "Oh, daddy." I don't know what that.
Oh, daddy.
Yeah.
Anthropomorphized. Oh, daddy. I don't know what that means. Yay.
Yeah. So put them in the questions, and we will do those. So I did see a question that said, "Are your kids atheist?"
You know what? I have an older daughter, and then I have two younger children. The older daughter, I was new to atheist activism, and so I was really in her face about it and kind of raised her as an atheist. And as time went by, I realized that that's really just as wrong as the indoctrination that religious people give their kids. And in the end, I suffered the backlash because she got to an age where most kids do at some point where they don't want to have anything to do with what their parents think. And so she developed her own spirituality. She's not a Christian or a Muslim or anything like that, but she believes in a God, and she's got her own idea about what that is. And I think part of that is a reaction to the way that she was brought up by me. So my younger kids, I just didn't talk to them about it. I tried to educate them as I could when they got old enough to the different religions and different philosophies and different ideas, and told them they could pick one on their own. And the sad thing is that they were indoctrinated in their own ways at the public school. This was what really launched me into hardcore activism, because they went to a public school with no idea what God even meant. I asked my kids one day, "What is God? Do you know what God is?" And they were 4 and 5. They were just a year apart. And all they could say was, "Well, we hear people say, 'Oh my God.'" They had no idea other than that it was just an expression that they hear from time to time. No idea what that concept meant. Less than a year later, my middle son, the older of the two younger ones, came back from kindergarten having learned a prayer put to music for Thanksgiving. It was just a Christian prayer that we heard about growing up all the time. It was when you go to bed, "Thank you, Lord. Thank you for the world so sweet. Thank you for the food we eat. Thank you for the birds that sing. Thank you, God, for everything." And then it was on. They knew what God was. All the other kids in their class got on board with their playground evangelism. Do you believe in God? Do you believe in God? Do you believe? When every other kid believes in God and your teacher believes in God, it's kind of hard to get around that. And that is so wrong that I can't even tell you. If you were a Muslim and you did that, or if you were an atheist and you did that, and a Christian kid went home and told his parents there wasn't a God because the teacher told him, there would be shit to pay. I can promise you, fired and a social pariah and kicked out of the community. You would be screwed if you did that. But it's okay if the Christians do it. So it's going to happen on the playground. I get that. It's going to happen in society. I just wanted to see how long they could go without it happening to them. But the way to do that is to just educate your kids. Kids can understand from a very early age. And it's my position that we should teach kids philosophy as soon as they go to school. They should learn basic world philosophy and religion so that they understand that one religion is not right just because your parents said it. And that people around the world have different ideas about what God means, and some people don't have any belief at all, and all of it is okay as long as it's your choice. But when you indoctrinate someone under the age of 5 to believe that that's the only way and the right way, you are damaging their ability to think logically, think skeptically, and use deductive reasoning, and you're harming their chances of competing in the modern world. So I could go on about that shit all day.
Oddity wants to know, do you think religion should be regulated?
Regulated in some ways. We've done a couple of videos on the fact that like when religion actually harms society, as the Catholic Church has, and really abused a sector of the populace in such a way that the government needs to step in, then yeah, they should step in. But I mean, freedom of religion is a basic American right and a U.S. right. But yeah, and regulation, that's a bigger topic. I think that they need to be sanctioned when they do something that's illegal, like letting your kid die from not giving them medicine. Religious exceptionalism, in a lot of cases, is wrong and it needs to be stopped.
Justin from Cincinnati. Does atheism affect your opinion on animal rights?
You know what? Animal rights is one of those things that I think anybody with a morality and a more developed sense of morality, and we see this in the modern day more than we used to, because it is a religious concept, and especially a Christian concept, that humans have a soul and animals don't, and animals are put here, for us to use as we want. So, I'm not the guy who I'm not a vegetarian, but I do think that we need to stop farming animals. I think that if you're going to eat meat, you should probably kill it yourself, like the Native Americans did, and give respect to that animal spirit. Because if you believe you have a spirit, to believe that animals don't is just to deny the fact that humans are just animals, right? And this is all just scientific fact. And I think that being an atheist has made me think about that stuff a little more. Animals have a right not to be treated cruelly. I do believe that.
And you can switch out spirit with consciousness.
Yeah, and spirit can be switched out with a lot of shit.
Yeah. Thoughts on the new age. Thoughts on the new age health and wellness thing. I think as it relates to sort of spirituality and religion.
Yeah, well, I made a joke about the T-shirt because it's obviously praise the lard. There's nothing really worse for you than lard, except maybe actual poison. But in moderation, that's probably okay for you. What was the question?
Thoughts on the new age
and
wellness thing.
I mean, I think as humans evolve, we have a better idea how to take care of ourselves. And I have to give it up to the Seventh-day Adventists. They're onto something there. They live longer, and it's something that you can statistically analyze. If you don't eat a lot of meat and you have a higher fiber, higher vegetarian diet, it's more healthy. So, I got no problem with that. And I've made real life changes lately to try to really cut down on the meat that I use. So yeah, I think that my atheism and just part of being a modern person has led me to try to respect the body a little bit more. And there, the body's a temple. There's a good Christian quote.
I read this question differently. So I think maybe they might be talking about Christians being more likely to fall for like crystals helping your body and things like that.
Well, I think if you're going to imbue inanimate objects with magic, then you might not be a Christian, but you're still that's all woo. If there's no evidence for it, then it's probably not real, and that doesn't mean it doesn't help you. I love essential oils. I like the way they smell, and they make me feel good, and there's nothing wrong with that. I don't believe that they're going to actually do anything for me medicinally or spiritually, because there's no reason to think that. It's just, but if it comforts you and you like it, then I'm all for it.
Thoughts on the Pledge of Allegiance?
Oh, don't get me started on the Pledge of Allegiance. What a piece of shit. Let me tell you what. The Pledge of Allegiance was wrong when it was first started. That's just another form of indoctrination. When you make people stand up in a room and pledge allegiance to the country, you're just asking people to conform. You're destroying creativity, you're destroying individuality, and you're indoctrinating people to an idea that might not necessarily be their own. And how many of us even listened to the words we were saying when I think back on it? It was by rote. You just say it, and until you get older, maybe you're smart enough to analyze what you're actually saying. But when you're a kindergartner and everybody stands up and puts their hand over their heart and says the pledge, whether God's in it or not, that's just enforcing your will on somebody else who's not in a position to deny it. So the pledge was a piece of shit when it was started, and to add God into it in the 50s like they did as part of the anti-communism big scare, that just made it even worse. So the pledge sucked in the beginning. It really sucks now, and I'm against all forms of indoctrination.
So Lynx Fox has another great one. Opinions on the Christians who try to convert you with overt creepy love, i.e., God loves you and so do I.
Well, that's nice. I want to be loved by everybody too, and the fact that they think God loves me is great. But this goes to Christian universalism, which was a real departure from religion at the time. Religions. I rewatched Rome, the HBO series from about 20 years ago, which is a great, great show. It's only 2 seasons, and it must be from a book, so that the arc is complete. It's not like they cut it short because there wasn't any viewers. It completes its story in 2 years, and there's numerous occasions in there where the Romans respected the fact that some of the people who came from other countries, the slaves and the population of Rome was full of people from other countries that got there via the fact that Rome was an empire and a colonial empire, and took people back to live in Rome. Those people all had their own gods, and no one tried to tell them that their gods weren't real. Those gods were just as real to them as the Roman gods were to the Romans, and the Greek gods were to the Greek gods. And the Jewish, they made fun of Jewish people and their one God, but they didn't try to change their minds about that. And when someone died, if they didn't have any of their own religious people around them, a sympathetic character would pray to their gods for them. And this is acted out in a scene in Rome that I just love, where the guy doesn't even know the religion of the person who's dead, but he says a prayer to whichever gods recognize this person as one of their own. Take her to you now. That's respect. Christian universalism states that Jesus came for everyone, and unless you have Jesus, you're not going to the heaven that you believed in. You're not going to Valhalla, because Thor is not real and Odin is not real, but Jesus is. So it's incumbent upon the followers of Jesus to let everybody know that, so that everybody can be saved, because Christianity is for everybody, where all those other religions were exclusive to the people that were born into that religion. And it makes Christianity intolerant, which is obviously paradoxical, because Christianity and Jesus and the teachings of Jesus are supposed to be about tolerance, but to convert people to Christianity is intolerant of the religion that they came from. Does that answer the question, kind of?
Yeah,
right?
yeah. Should churches pay taxes? We covered that today, but...
Well, we're not going to release that video for a while, but there
Yeah.
will be a little video about that. Churches should pay taxes if they voice a political opinion or if they make a profit. As long as they follow the nonprofit rules, they don't have to pay taxes. There's a lot of little bitty churches out there that don't make money, and they pay the pastor a little bit of money, and the pastor has to pay his taxes on that income. And if the church owns his house, they get to write that house off. But the problem is that nonprofits that aren't religious, like our own, Freedom from Religion Foundation, doesn't always get to do the same thing. So if the rules for churches are one way, then the rules for other nonprofits need to be the same way. And if churches come out as political, which we know that the Christian right is almost only political, the identity politics of right-wing evangelical Christianity is hardcore right-wing Republican. And if you're going to do that and come out and be Trumpy, for instance, or Biden-y, then you need to pay taxes, period. And if a church exists, in my opinion, for 10 years, and then in the ninth or 10th year, all of a sudden they're like spouting political bullshit, they should be back taxed for everything they had. Do like Henry VIII does. When the Catholic Church became political and against his politics, he just went and took all their fucking gold. And who could blame him? So yeah, churches should be taxed if they don't follow the rules.
Is atheism increasing in America?
You mean in the U.S.? In the beginning, I bitched about people who take me to task. But people in Canada and Mexico get mad if you call this America. This is the United States. America is a continent, whatever. Yeah, atheism is on the rise in America. And only like 7% of people will actually call themselves atheists in the polls. That's a lot bigger because people don't want to admit it. They're scared to come out because of the backlash. People don't like the term atheism. They want to be called agnostic. So there's another 10% that'll call themselves agnostic. But the fact is that people who are non-religious, they'll tick that box. And that's up to 28% by some polls. And it's, again, probably higher than that. If you take all those people together, we're bigger than any other single religious sect. So, yes, atheism is on the rise in America, and it's going to continue to rise, if only because religion is on the decline, because it sucks.
This one's more of a comment, but you can respond to it. I've had repeat issues with my kids' teachers praying. So maybe what they should do.
If that happens to you, complain about it. Go to the principal, say this is wrong. If you get backlash from the principal, go to the superintendent. if you're not getting anywhere, I went through this specifically. If you're not getting anywhere, you can complain to ffrf.org. It's intake at ffrf.org. Write a letter, send them your evidence, and they will decide whether if it's under the wire and they're not going to win anything. They'll tell you, sorry, it's just a little bit too little for us. But if it's a real violation of the Constitution, they will write a letter, and it'll be a fabulously worded legal letter that scares people, and it costs the school money to respond to that. They'll have to investigate and hire their own lawyer, and they don't want to do that, and they don't want to be on the news. Not up here anyway. If you're in Texas, I'm sorry. I just got to say, if you're watching from Texas, I'm sorry. There's a lot of great Texans. I love to make fun of Texas because it's a shithole too. But there's a lot of great things in Texas. A lot of great activists and atheists in Texas. Aaron Ra, Matt Dillahunty, all these people are in Texas. And the atheist community of Austin is like one of the biggest, most successful atheist community organizations anywhere. But Texas is ridiculous. What they let happen this winter with their grid is ridiculous. They have a ridiculous governor who tries to obfuscate and blame other people. But what was the question?
They're talking about religion, praying and...
Oh, yeah, praying in schools. Yeah. If you're in a place like Texas, we had someone reach out from Texas who was a teacher who was an atheist. She wasn't necessarily out, but her son did something to out them. He identified in a school project. He did something to out them as atheists. She was fired. She went to apply at other school districts where they flat out came out and told her, we believe in Jesus here, and if you don't have a job here. It's tough. If you're in a place like that where everybody is on board with that kind of bullshit, you have a tough time. So I would urge you to go to the ACLU. That's not even an atheist organization, but they will stand up for your rights as a citizen to be free from religion and to get fired for bullshit like that. So, yeah.
Which religion do you think will die out first?
Aren't there some that have already died out, I guess, right? Which one? I mean, there's too many. The little ones are going to die out first, right? Except for Judaism, that's little on a worldwide scale, but it's tied to bloodlines and heritage. So it'll as long as they keep having babies, that one will never die. But it's the little religions like the Yazidi that are getting slaughtered on a mountainside in Iraq. I always forget. I think it's in Iraq. We did some shows on them with the old podcast, but religions like that are subject to what amounts to genocide, and they're so small that they can't stand up for themselves militarily, and they end up getting squashed. So I don't know the stats on the bigger religions, which ones are declining first. I have a feeling that Christianity's right up there, mostly because it's bigoted and shitty. So I think that the religions that don't accept modern science and don't evolve to accept societal norms, being gay is more mainstream in America than being an atheist, and being transgender is such a big deal now that everybody knows somebody transgender, and yet Christianity can't embrace that, and you still have outright bigotry and people slamming the Bible at you, going, this 2,000-year-old morality is works for today, and people know that it doesn't. So the religions that survive are the ones that will accept science and accept modern knowledge and modern morality and simply adjust. And that's why religions like Buddhism will last longer, because in a general sense they do accept scientific fact. And like I said, the mainline Protestant sects that don't deny evolution and don't deny the Big Bang. Yeah, maybe there's a guy that started it all. I'm not even going to say that there's not. We don't know that. But it's just the most implausible. But at least those religions don't try to deny what we know is obvious fact. The ones that do deny that are going to crap out first. And the internet has a lot to do with that. People can get online now at the library and just be like, what? Man, my mom taught me some shit. So those are the ones that are going to die first, the ones that can't adapt.
This one's kind of specific, but why do you think atheism is increasing in the UK?
Like everywhere, atheism is increasing because people have a greater access to knowledge. You can get on the internet and you can research claims and find out that they're just not true. So people who were insulated in the past weren't able to do that. Amish communities, where they eschew technology. Even those, if your kid goes to school or he's got a friend from the outside, they're going to learn the truth sooner or later, and you can't keep people in the dark any longer. So the UK is no different. Boy, they got some problems now. No, that shit's coming home to roost for the original racists. I think the original white supremacists, I should say. Racism's obviously been around since time began, but yeah, the UK is no different, and it's less religious than the US, but it's more religious than other European countries, and they do have their pockets of hardcore apologists and even young Earth creationists still. So. Just like every country, the UK is a first world country with access to the best education and the best internet. So sooner or later, people are just going to stop believing. You can look around and see empty pews in the seats in the Anglican churches in England, and no one wants a state-sponsored religion. No one wants that shit. So, yeah.
Someone wanted to know: have you ever watched Snowpiercer?
I love Snowpiercer. Jennifer Connelly. Oh. I wish she'd eat a burger. She's looking a little skinny, but man, what a beautiful woman. And the whole show is cool. I'm a science fiction fan, and to imagine like something like that happening, that you can get your head around that science fiction. You know what I mean? It's not like something so fantastic that it's beyond the realm of possibility, which I love. Meaning that I love outrageous science fiction too. All of that stuff I was raised on, the Star Treks and the Star Wars and stuff that you just know is bunk. But Snowpiercer and like The Expanse, this is sort of a future that we can envision by the way that we're treating our planet. So yeah, go Snowpiercer.
What is your take on government and religion?
Well, government should be free of religion and free from religion, and the fact is that it's not here in America. We have a damn prayer breakfast still, and all of this stuff is from modern times. That's the crazy thing. Before the advent of media, the politicians weren't nearly as overtly Christian. And we know they're not. We know most of them aren't. Most of them are highly educated people, and we know that the more educated and the more intelligent you are, the less likely you are to be religious. So the fact that people have gotten to be politicians and successful politicians in their life leads you to believe that most of them are highly educated and pretty intelligent, and so their religion is simply pandering. They want the votes, and they know that the unwashed masses in America and the U.S. are largely unthinking Christians. Not all of them. Again, not all Christians are unthinking. Some of them are good, philosophical people who understand that their religion is theirs and it's not the government's, and those people are on our side. In fact, Americans for the Separation of Church and State is an organization not run by atheists. It's actually headed by religious folk who understand that when government and religion mix, it diminishes both, period. Religion can't do what it does best if it's mixed up in government, and government can't do what it's best if it's mixed up in religion. So we need to absolutely separate the two with a crowbar, and that's what we're here to do. You got something to say, dog? Go outside.
So if evolution is real, does that disprove God?
No, of course not.
Well, it should be noted that evolution is real.
Evolution is real. I mean, it's not an if. We know that evolution is real, and if you don't think it is, then you're just not willing to look at the facts and the tons and tons and tons of research. We know evolution is real. That we can breed dogs the way we want them. Artificial selection is evidence of self, of how evolution works. So no, I mean, God may have. This is how I was brought up. God started the whole thing 16 billion years ago, or 14.8 billion years ago, whatever the age of the visible universe is. That's not unusual to me. What was unusual was to find that there are people who still think Genesis is literal. I mean, the people who wrote Genesis knew it wasn't literal. They were writing a metaphor. This is how much God loved us, and this is, it was never meant to be a literal story. And so the monkeys who think that it's a literal story are, in fact, maybe their best evidence against evolution because they're so unevolved in their minds. But yeah, there's no reason that you can't believe in God and everything scientific. None of that disproves God. God still might be behind it all. As long as there's no evidence that he is, then it's just a God of the gaps argument, which is weak and weaker than weak. Nothing is a reason for God just because we don't know the reason that it is. That's just lazy and psychologically embarrassing to me.
Oops, sorry. Why do people not like the term atheist?
There's just a stigma behind it, and that's part of why I call myself an atheist, is just to try to get that stigma away from it. There's people who call themselves humanists, which is a great term, but humanism is human beings solving human problems with human solutions, which is the only way anything happens, whether you're a humanist or not. That's the only way anything happens, is for human beings to solve human problems with human solutions. The problem with humanism, I think, is they have a little dogma over there where they try to tell people that they need to live like that. Whereas an atheist will be like, if you don't want to be a humanist and you don't want to help anybody, that's on you. Atheism is only a term because religion exists. And if we said atheism instead of atheism, it would sound more like amorality or asexuality. Atheism. It would just seem like what it is, which is just the negative of theism, the opposite. There's no belief. And that term wouldn't even really need to be around if it wasn't for the pervasiveness of religion. But I don't have a problem with the term atheism, but the fact is that a lot of people do, and it just shocks people and stuns them and makes people mad at other people. So a lot of people try to avoid it with terms like free thinker, right? Or secularist. Rationalist is a good one that I've heard. And there's other ones. Can you think of mythicists? That's a little different. But there's a lot of terms that people use. Agnostic, is maybe the best one, if you want to just say that I don't know. And to me, we're all agnostic because none of us know, really. But an atheist embraces the implausibility of the God concept by owning the fact that I can't believe that for which there is no evidence. So I'm an atheist.
This one's also more of a statement. What happened to the turds on the ark?
Turds? You know what? That's a good one. They probably just shoveled them out into the ocean, like most modern Christians. They don't feel bad about littering and destroying the planet and using up all the resources and ignoring climate change, because this is just a temporary world. So why do we need to preserve it? That's to me, that's an evangelical phenomenon. That whole way of thinking. Again, I was raised to respect nature and not litter and respect the earth. And I'm not sure manure is really pollution, but you get what I'm getting at. I could see Noah, throwing his paper cup overboard when he's done with his coffee in the morning, because it doesn't matter because we're that was obviously, those are Jewish myths, not Christian myths. They've just been adopted into Christianity because Christianity had the good sense to add the Torah and the rest of the Old Testament into the Christian Bible, when the two are completely at odds with each other. But yeah, the turds on Noah's Ark, I think they were actually used afterwards for fertilizer to regrow the plants that were destroyed in the flood.
I think too, it's also an example of learning not to question. I mean, there's a lot of questions that the ark brings up that no kid's allowed to really ask.
Right, you just accept it, right? And it's a fun story, right? Everybody loves animals, 2 by 2, and but the Old Testament is full of stuff that guarantees that people shouldn't question what you're told. Honor thy mother and father is one of them. If your mother and father tell you that this religion is true and you don't think it is, you better just keep that to yourself and honor thy mother. Those are just fail-safes to keep an unsustainable faith system alive in the minds of the indoctrinated.
Who's your least liked televangelist?
Oh man, I saw old Jim Bakker on TV. He popped up. He got rid of the comb over. He actually looks better because he's got rid of the comb over. But I don't know. My least liked. They all suck so bad. I got to give it to Billy Graham though. He started it. If it wasn't for him, there wouldn't be any of these other ones. So I'll go ahead and choose Billy Graham because he's probably the most liked one, and people think that he was a good Christian and that he was actually, that he was like America's pastor back in the day. What he really did was start us on the road to this whole born-again evangelical bullshit, and make it possible for other televangelists to do their dirty work, when all of them are just dirty. They're having secret nasty sex, and they're making millions of dollars, and they're just smarmy, slimy liars, like the scumbag who was Trump's religious person, that Paula somebody, who was just a lunatic, talking in tongues and just spewing shit that she doesn't believe because it's making her rich beyond most of our dreams. Joel Osteen, he got drunk one time and called himself God because that's what he really thinks, right? And they had to back off of it. What a putz, man. Yeah, lump them all together and put them on a fucking rocket. Put them on Put them on Snowpiercer and stick them out in the cold, man.
Who was the one we did the video on that wasn't a televangelist, but the sexual assault one? Do you remember?
No.
Okay, it was a few years ago.
Yeah.
But it's one of our most popular videos.
What? Yeah, but it was just a local guy. It was a guy from Willow Springs
that's right,
in Illinois. That was a mega church in Illinois where the pastor got caught like groping a teenager or something. It wasn't even a boy in his case. I think it was a girl. But that happens all the time.
Well, I think it was his staff. He was grabbing his staff.
Yeah, grabbing his staff or whatever it is. No, anybody who's in half of those people get into that just to do that. And Buddhism is full of that shit, man. These guys who open clinics, I mean, the Beatles found that out when they went to India and realized that the guru or the Swami or whoever they were chilling with, he was just in it for the tail, man. That's all he was like using his position to like mac on women, you know. So that's his like a common theme in churches is those people who just use their position of authority to get over on people.
We have the heathen vegan wants to know, what is your opinion on the prophecy for God claims?
Heathen vegan, love it. The prophecy? What does that mean? Say it again.
What is your opinion on prophecy for God claims?
I'm not sure I get that. I mean, you know, prophecy is like anything else. It's just, you know, in the old days, it was probably mentally ill people who wandered around and were considered touched by God. A lot of those people who were insane in the day and talked about their visions and their dreams would be institutionalized today, but they were left alone back then because people were afraid that maybe they were, you know, in a special way, their mind was reaching a higher power that they didn't want to disturb for fear of being punished. So a lot of insane wanderers were revered as prophets and messiahs and you know, John the Baptist style preachers. That was a common archetype in the early in Bronze Age times and in Bible times. That happened a lot. So prophecy, you know, it's neat to look at, like, ooh, look at Nostradamus said this and it came true and all that kind of crap, you know, and all that Illuminati shit and all of that stuff is just hooey. It's just bunk, and it's fodder for people who are hobbyists, you know, who like it and love the poetry of it and the imagery and the movies that come out of it, which I get. That's cool, but don't believe any of it's true. I mean, that's just use your brain.
I wondered if it related to like those people who are looking for prophecies from like Revelations, where they're like, there's a lot of storms, that means now times are ending.
There has not been a time in human history when you couldn't say that stuff is so bad that the world is ending. No one since the Bible was written has ever lived through a time where they're like, wow, stuff is so good on earth now. I know we're really far from Jesus coming back because the things are so good on the planet. No, there's always been all that crap. And what if it's worse now, it's because we're doing it with emissions. You know, human beings have overpopulated the planet. And that's part of our evolved brains. We were able to survive at a rate that we were never meant to by nature. Never. 150 years ago in Chicago, your son or your daughter had a less than 50% chance of surviving past the age of 5. That's fact. And nowadays, we don't have that problem. We can save most babies, and moms don't die in childbirth almost at all anymore, especially compared to the way it was when we had to live like the rest of the animals. We've gotten ourselves past that point and artificially created a world where human beings can continue to overpopulate, and the result of that is catastrophic climate change. So if it's really different, which it looks like it is in some ways, weather-wise, you know, then that's our doing. If it's worse morally, like a lot of people think it is, I don't believe it is. I think most people are better off. I think most people have better empathy. Most people have a higher morality. We're seeing, you know, the acceptance of gays and transgenders and yes, a little bit atheists and minorities that would have just been, you know, slaughtered out of hand or persecuted out of sight in the old days. So in general, I don't believe that society is falling apart the way that Christians claim that it is, because of media, that stuff is in their face more than it used to be, right? So, you know, no.
Then why do Christians think Jesus is real and was white?
I had a couple of commenters mentioned that the Borgia Pope used his son as a model for the Renaissance art, which explains the white Jesus thing. You know, Christians think Jesus was real because people have been acting like he was real since the Pauline letters, which were written maybe 40, 50 years after Jesus died. Modern historians who have no axe in the fight are starting to question whether Jesus existed at all or not, and if he did exist, was he anything like the person that we read about today? And there's a million reasons why he probably did. He certainly wasn't white. I mean, let's just get over that. If you could find me a white Palestinian from 2,000 years ago, then maybe there was an albino, right? But no, Jesus wasn't a white man with flowing blonde, dirty blonde hair or brown hair and a beard and a sweet, semi-feminine look of caring on his face. All of that is bunk. Christians believe he was real because he probably existed in some form as a wandering preacher or as a heretic Jew who just was sick and fed up with the hypocrisy of the Jewish establishment at the time, which, like all religions, was in it for their own good and their own power and their own money, and he railed against that, and that was a threat to them. So, Christians believe Jesus was real because if they don't, then they're not Christians. So, I don't know how to answer that any better than that. They have to believe Jesus was real or they're not Christians.
And for those who are commenting, remember, if you for those that just joined, you want to put your questions in the Q&A. There should be a little, I think it just says Q&A.
Yeah, the Q&A thing down at the bottom. I don't look at the TikTok feed, but I think you can see it, right? If you're just on TikTok, it's in red letters. It says Q&A.
Well, yeah, I meant in this. During this.
Okay, sorry.
Right next to the comment section, you hit the question, and then we'll answer them because we're running low on questions. Have you ever watched the Jesus Camp documentary?
Oh, you know what? I don't think I got all the way through it. I watched enough of it to be disgusted by that stuff, but I should take another look at that.
Oh, we got a bunch that just added. Thank you. Do you think it was mainly a form of democracy? I'm not sure what that's referencing, though.
What?
The question is, do you think it was mainly a form of democracy? I don't know.
Yeah, maybe you can explain that question a little better.
Okay.
But while we're at it, I was talking about the Q&A thing, where I will answer a video.
Oh yeah.
There's only an option to do that. I can answer the Q&A, and where is that on your feed? If you see that.
Yeah. So there's two ones. One is if you're in this live stream and you want us to answer the live stream question, there's one at the bottom near the comments. It's just a question mark, I think, in the chat. Looks like a talk logo symbol. But if you do want us to answer questions and you're not in the live stream, you could just do it on our homepage. There's a thing it's a red that says Q&A, and then you can send it there. But for the live stream, it's near the comment where you would normally comment.
Yeah, and we appreciate that. If you send the Q&A questions to ask for a video response, it gives us ideas for videos, and that helps. So please do that. I enjoy answering those questions. Make them specific, though. I can't guess what you're getting at, and I'm not good at looking back and going through a million comments to try to find it.
Do you believe in living again after death?
No.
They said something like, "Do you belly B-E-L-I?" I don't know what that means.
That's just believe with a.
Oh.
Just misspelled believe.
Oh, okay. You're rolling two things. Okay. Do you believe in afterlife? Okay.
Yeah, afterlife is when your molecules disintegrate and go back to the universe, and energy is conserved. We know that matter is just a function of that, and the Bible says it: ashes to ashes, dust to dust. You know what I mean? I don't know. I love it when the Bible makes our point for us. And for all those people who don't think I've read the Bible and I'm uneducated about it, I'm gonna throw Bible verses at me. No, you're barking up the wrong tree, pal. People who think that the Bible is evidence of God and that they have an answer in the Bible for the things that I say. You keep it up if you want. I love that you're paying attention to the page, but the Bible is not an evidence of anything other than that old people wrote down their stories. So don't hit me with that shit, because I'll give it right back to you. I know some Bible verses myself.
What are your thoughts on people who are spiritual?
Hey man, being spiritual is better than being a murderer. You know what I mean? I love the fact that people have their own brains and they can investigate their own feelings, and they feel like there's a higher spirituality. I mean, that's none of that is bad, but it doesn't make it supernatural or even real. It's just your own version of self-help, and everybody's got to do what they can do to what they have to do to sleep at night, and this is a short, brutish life on a planet that's beautiful, but a lot of times crappy to a lot of people, and being a human being is not easy. So I don't blame anybody. I don't blame any adults for choosing religion. It's self-help. And if you're not, if you're smart enough to, to reject religious dogma, which is all clearly wrong and bullshit, but you still feel that there's a higher, spiritual essence to your being, more power to you. Do what you can to make you a better person and make the planet a better place. This dog is freaking out on me, growling. I have a Ginger, the faithless healer. She's an Australian healer, a cattle dog. So I call her the faithless healer instead of faith healer. Get it?
This one we answered earlier, but when did you become an atheist?
After college, basically, or during college. As soon as I realized that I could think by myself and on my own, and it didn't matter what grandma believed and what old people said. That's when it happened for me. And a lot of people can't do that. A lot of people's indoctrination prohibits them from getting there emotionally, psychologically, and mentally. So we fight for those people, and we fight so that doesn't happen to kids. I got lucky. I didn't grow up in a goddamn cult.
Opinion on the surge of Norse paganism.
I love Norse paganism, man, and I'm glad it's surging, It's awesome imagery. It's much more interesting mythology than the Judeo-Christian myth arc, which is just morbid and weird and creepy. But, none of it's real. None of it's... there's no evidence that any of those gods exist either. I just think that minority religions need to assert themselves in the face of Christian nationalism. So I am all for it. I have pagan friends, and we've interviewed a gal who is considers herself a Norse, a heathen and a pagan priestess, and worships the pantheon of Norse mythology. So I got no problem with that. Any of that stuff is I say more power to all minority religions today.
Do you believe in other universes besides ours?
I haven't looked into the multiverse thing a whole lot. It's cool to think about, and I think a lot more people are starting to buy into that idea. But I'm not an astrophysicist. Way above my pay grade. I'm smart, but I'm not that smart. I'm arrogant, but I'm not that arrogant. And maybe I'll have time, and I can get back with some of the astrophysicists I know if they stop getting accused of sexual misconduct. Maybe I can have them on the podcast again, and we can get into that. The next podcast is going to be on the Big Bang, so hopefully we'll learn a little bit about multiverse. String theory, is that one of the other ones, right? Am I getting that right?
I think that's more about how the universe works.
Yeah, okay. Yeah. But no, the multiverse is as I understand it, is a pretty good way to explain what happened before the Big Bang. But I don't really know the details.
Thoughts on militant atheism?
I'm all for it. As long as people are peaceful. To be militant in my mind is to just go ahead and make fun of religion, poke holes in it, point out how hypocritical and ridiculous American evangelical Christians are with their whole guns and Bible thing. There's one thing Jesus didn't have is a damn gun. And war is incompatible with the teachings of Christianity. So the people who do that in America are they're not Christians, they're just idiots. And I'm really, really tired of that.
They want to know about Revelation as prophecy of the future. Discuss Revelation as prophecy of the future.
Revelation is a fun book in the Bible to read. It's like I wish someone would just make a movie. And that would be like a drug trip, because I feel like, somebody just ate some peyote and wrote Revelation down, or had a really vivid dream and wrote it down. As prophecy, it's bunk. There's nothing in it that, that's ever going to come true. If the Antichrist is going to return, disguised as a man of God, he already did, and he's an orange guy living in Florida with his cult of followers now, and he's actually the perfect personification of what they're saying. If the beast comes, he's going to come pretending he's a man of God. No one has ever pretended, no atheist in the history of atheism has ever pretended to be a man of God worse than that piece of shit that we just got out of office.
I said maybe they're like the Scientology guy, a failed fiction writer.
Failed science fiction writer, yeah, back in the day. Like, and somebody's like, wow, man, you really had a dream. Was it in color? Ooh, it must be real. Let's write that down and sell it.
Do you prefer morality or ethics? I'm not sure exactly.
Yeah, that's a big topic. The whole subjective morality, objective morality. I mean, they're different. Ethics, we need ethics just to survive, I think, as a society. And morality, it comes from our human empathy for one another. They're different things. I remember being asked by a high school teacher, what's the difference between morality and ethics? And it's tough, when you're young, especially, to get your head around that. But, yeah, I think treat people ethically and morally, and understand that they're not exactly the same thing, and people can have different moralities on a certain level, but I think ethics is necessary for a society to function. There's not really much of a way we can get around that, or it really will fall apart. I'm not an anarchist.
This one's kind of written strange because it says religious conditioning equals people susceptible to being QAnon. Okay, basically our religious conditioning causing people to be more susceptible to conspiracy theories.
Well, yeah, of course, and part of that is comfort. We've talked about this a lot on the podcast and in other platforms, where it gives people comfort to feel like they have control over part of their lives, and especially in times when you don't have control, like recent times in the U.S. with COVID, in the world with COVID, people feel like they're a little bit out of control, so they will see patterns where there aren't any, and they will make up reasons for things, because it's comforting to the brain to feel like you understand something that you really don't, or that you have control over something that you don't have control of. So yeah, the more apt someone is to buy into religion, the more apt they are to buy into conspiracy theories. I think that's a verifiable stat that you can look at.
Do you believe in spirits or ghosts?
No.
Oop, I think somebody's
knocking on the door.
Sure. Do you want to cut out and come back, or
you want to just go answer?
Sure.
I can't really read the questions.
Yeah. So, do you believe in spirits or ghosts?
No, I don't believe in spirits or ghosts. There's no evidence for spirits or ghosts. If any of the anecdotal evidence for ghosts that we hear and we see about on these TV shows and different stuff were real, then we would have the evidence so that we could all evaluate it, and somebody could write a paper on it. Some scientists could gather his data, write a paper on it, and have it peer reviewed. That's how these things happen. You put your ideas out there, and somebody attacks them, and if it's there's no evidence for it and it's not real, then it probably isn't there. So yeah, spirits and ghosts, not a thing.
Isn't the Bible good afterlife insurance?
Afterlife insurance is. You want to try to take her with you? Well, Ginger, go.
Calm down.
Afterlife insurance is the weakest form of faith, and people come to us all the time and say, "Well, isn't it better, to be a Christian in case it's real?" That's not real faith, and if your God is omnipotent and omniscient, then He's going to know that you don't have faith. You're just, with this Pascal's wager, right? He's like, well, it's better, I may as well believe, because if I don't believe and it's true, I'm going to hell. But if I do believe and it's real, then and it's not real, then I don't have anything to lose. But in my mind, you do, because if you're using that as your reasoning, then God's going to know that you're just doing it for insurance. So that's actually the weakest form of faith, and it diminishes good Christian people and good religious people by cheapening the message. Really, it's just bad.
Do you believe God was created to explain death?
God was created to explain everything that they didn't know. Right? God was, religion is proto-science. I say this to people all the time. Early religion is proto-science. They didn't have any other way. They didn't know where the sun went at night. They didn't know if the sun was going to come back after winter. So they invented God to explain literally everything that they didn't know. Take the caveman, who ends up being the strongest caveman. He defeats his enemies. He's the greatest hunter. He's the greatest provider. He's the leader of his little society. He's up on a rock giving a speech one day when he's 38 years old or 45 years old, and he drops dead of a heart attack. There's no way to diagnose that or autopsy that to find out why that guy died. So, the natural thing for those people is to say that a higher power than him killed him, decided that that's enough for him, and there he goes dead. So, to me, the reasons that religion evolved are really simple and logical to look at. You know, and the sun is a big one. The sun is, if there is a God, it is the sun, because none of us could live without it. It gives life, and everything we have on this planet we owe to the fact that we're a certain distance from a yellow sun that gives us warmth and lets us grow crops and animals. So early religion was a lot of just replacement. You know, and Jesus is, a dying and rising Messiah, a replacement for the sun. The fact that Jesus is supposedly dead for 3 days and then ascends is a direct reflection of the observational fact that when the sun hits its winter solstice at its lowest point, early astronomers would watch it and look for signs of it, coming back up again. And without real sophisticated instruments, you can't see it come back up again for guess how long? 3 days. So the sun dies for 3 days, it seems like, and then on the third day, you can start seeing it go back up in the sky. And every year they're like, yes, it's coming back again. We're going to have spring, and the crops are going to go. They didn't have any way to know that was going to happen and continue to happen for another 4 billion years, long after any of us are going to have to worry about it. But that brings up a whole other topic. It will be a concern sooner or later if humans survive that long. They're really going to have to figure out what to do when the sun goes and envelops the earth.
Do you think the Bible's authors were on drugs?
Maybe some of them. Who knows? There's all kinds of cactus buds and weed and everything that grows, and everybody, hashish from the Middle East is very fine hashish. I can guarantee that from personal experience. So maybe, but more likely they were just leaders. They were leaders who realized that society needed rules, or people were going to continue to stab each other over stealing people's stuff or their women, or whatever it is. The religion and the writers of the Bible were more likely a historian. Some of them were just like, this is what we remember of our written history, and they were just the people who were trying to record that, and the ones who formed it into a dogma were the ones who realized that this could be used to corral and lead and control people. And most people are easily controlled. Most people are followers, not leaders. The Bible itself uses the sheep metaphor because the pastor tends to his flock. The word pastor means shepherd. That's not a coincidence that we call ministers pastors. Pastor is the Latin word, for shepherd.
Oh, I think did I just lose that one? Will AI eventually overtake man?
Maybe. I think probably if there is an afterlife, it'll be that we're able to upload at some point our consciousness into. I think they're getting fairly close to that in historical terms, and none of us are going to see it, I don't think. But I have people who believe that, or not believe, but conjecture that maybe the next generation or the one after will be able to do that in some form. Whether AI is able to take over or not, because it develops its own capabilities and wants and needs, and is able to overpower us. That's scary science fiction. Everything from the Matrix to AI itself as a movie. I love looking at all that stuff and imagining it. I don't have any real reason to fear that that'll happen. I feel like the inventors of the machines probably aren't going to let a machine overtake our own intelligence. That it relies on that, right? That the machine that you created ends up being smarter than you, and I'm not sure I can get my head around that being possible. Oops. Watch Westworld. Love Westworld 2 on HBO. Great show. The last season of it and the revelations there. Cool. Talk about AI, not only taking over and running people's lives, but actually fulfilling the genetic predisposition of people to end up a certain way.
Could there be, I think there's more of a comment, could there be infinite Big Bangs if time never ends?
Yeah, probably. I think that's when the universe starts contracting again and it comes back together into a single point, it can't help but explode again. I think that's the original Big Bang Theory part, I'm not sure, again, if that's evolving as the people who study these things, the experts who study these things, have learned. But yeah, I think that's a possibility for sure.
Someone said the big bounce. And also I saw someone else said with AI looking to Elon Musk. That's what I was thinking as well. He's got a lot of his new strategy is to, I think we talked about this last time, was connect with technology so that AI, like we're basically like related to AI, like we would connect ourselves to it.
Yeah, and I think that scientists conjecture that if we're ever going to get to the point where we're going to be able to travel huge distances in space, the distances necessary to get to other planets and other galaxies, we're going to need to blend our biology with our technology.
What about other dimensions? So I assume that's whether your thoughts on that.
Yeah, I mean that's multiverse, isn't it? To me, that's all. I'm not sure it's exactly the same, but subspace. Talk of subspace in science fiction and other dimensions. It's just another universe, isn't it? Right? Another dimension.
Yeah, I think it's more. I think of dimension as being like there's something over us, but I don't know if multiverse is kind of the same thing too. So it's sort of
yeah.
I think they blend.
I mean, I get what they're talking about. It doesn't have to be multiverse now that I'm thinking about it. Human beings can only see things in 3 dimensions, and that doesn't mean that there's not 4th and 5th dimensions. Oh, yeah. We're just not capable of witnessing with our senses, and that's absolutely possible, and when there's evidence for that, there'll be evidence for that, and there'll be papers written about it, and again we can judge on it. But until there's actual evidence, it's just fancy.
Yeah, I think right now there's a lot of scientists who do believe in it, and they have reason to believe that, but they don't have enough evidence yet to convince the rest of the scientists yet. So it's waiting to see.
Yeah, and that's what happens. If you write a paper and it gets roundly shit on by all the other scientists, and I suppose there's been a few times in history where some radical scientist had an idea that nobody else could get behind. That's probably happened, but that's the great thing about science. Sooner or later, it is the search for truth. That's the crazy thing. When people of faith talk about their faith being truth and science just like not knowing, they really discredit people who do this for a living. Why would you argue with an expert in any field if you're not an expert? The circumcision trolls, there was a couple of them who really insisted that I was really uninformed and I had no idea. I've written a documentary. I've researched it. So unless you're a doctor or you've researched the way I've researched circumcision, you can't argue with me about it. But people are like, you're just wrong. You're wrong. You're so wrong. I love seeing the head of my pee-pee. It's just better. It's cleaner. And I have people like talk the opposite, a couple of these trolls, about that. You just tell me that the absolute opposite of what I know from researching with doctors and other educated sources to be true. And people are just insisting, that. So I don't know why anybody would argue with an astrophysicist about the nature of the universe. It's just ignorant to me. Those people are in it because they love it, and they're searching for answers. They're searching for the truth. And most of them don't have any preconceived notion. That's why they're into science, because they want to find out things. They don't want to tell people how things are. They want to find out the truth of how things are. And if something comes up to change that truth, then they adapt. They add it in. When new evidence comes, you change your view on something.
What's your take on Satanism?
Satanism's cool. It's I don't know any Satanists who really think Satan is real. It's really we talked about this, I think, the last time somebody asked about Satanism. Satanism is really embracing you and the best that you can be, and not denying yourself pleasures or knowledge or experience of any kind just because somebody's dogma says that that's not right to do that. The whole if it feels good, do it thing that was so demonized by Christianity, why is that? As long as you're not hurting someone else, there's nothing wrong with anything that you do. So, Satanism, as I understand it these days, is just people trying to be the best people they can be and have the most fun and the most learning and the most experience that they can in their limited time on this planet. And the whole Satan part is just imagery, and the Satanic Temple, Lucian Greaves and his people, I love the way they take it to the Christians, because it's like atheism with a bit, right? They go around, well, if you can put up a Ten Commandments statue, we can put up a statue of Baphomet, and I love that. And the others, classic Satanists who came from the Anton LaVey tradition, kind of, I've talked to a real jerk who was just kind of a touch hole, but They hate that. They don't think that Satanists should be doing that. But I think that's where Satanism is in the public eye these days, is people going around doing that and you know, putting coloring books in school with demons on for you to color in and stuff. Because if the Christians can do it, then any other religion can do it. So to me, the Satanists have a great bit going there. I'm jealous of it. I wish that atheism could be quite as popular as Satanism, which it's not. But it's just because we don't have a thing. We don't have a dogma. We don't have a bit. And Satanism at least has, you know, you can look at this and say, you know, here's what we're doing, and it's opposed. It's seen as opposed to other religions doing their version of the same shit.
Squibcake says, check out the documentary Hail Satan. And I also want to mention that there is a lot of Satanist TikTokers, so there's plenty of people to check out in that.
Yeah, I'm sure there is. Yeah, I wish I had more time. We can't. I just, with the stuff that we do, the podcast, all the channels, we don't have a lot of time to look at other people's stuff. I do when I can. I do like documentaries. I just like I like good science fiction and good, well written drama series more than I like scrolling TikTok. But Hail Satan, I'll try to look at that for sure.
So here's one that relates directly to the recent podcast that came out. It says, possibility that extraterrestrials became idols for some religions.
Yeah, I think there's no possibility of that. Well, there is a possibility, but again, it's implausible. There's no real evidence, and all the evidence is just one guy's spin on it to make money off the idea. And it's an idea that fascinates people. But, you know, there's a lot of ancient art that is stylized, but, you know, abstract art has been around as long as art has been around. So, you know, the fact that, you know, Japanese figurines from prehistory might have a big giant head with huge eyes, that's not evidence of aliens coming down here. You know, I kind of like it myself. And like I say, I wish it was. I wish aliens would visit today and give me a ray gun so I can blow up some Christians.
Do you want to talk about the most recent podcast and then also how people can watch it, listen to it?
Yeah, the podcast is available anywhere that you get podcasts, iTunes and Spotify, and I guess there's other ones too. Or just go to atheistunderground.com and scroll down and get all of our podcasts. They come out infrequently because they're highly edited, and I don't have a lot of time to work on them straight. So they're not like a weekly talking head like we're doing this, you know, where we just like talk on tape and put it out there. You know, I make sure that I think they're entertaining and that they include different shorter bits, interviews with scientists, interviews with other you know, minority religion, the circumcision thing that's tied to religion. Plus we have some fun with you know, snarky comments and little comedy bits and some activism and just, you know, helping people know how they can contribute to the atheist movement and our fight. But the last one was on alien origins theory, and you know, there's nothing you know, that we posit that's real about any of it. We just kind of make fun of the subject and point out that you know, if you're able to believe in a god, you're more apt to believe in, you know, ancient aliens theories for which there isn't any evidence. And a lot of that stuff was, again, just scams, ways to sell books.
This one comes from David. Is after death simply the same as before life?
That's the way I look at it. How can you think of it any differently? You know, there's probably a few seconds of lingering consciousness where people, you know, might see a light or something for a second, and then if they're ripped back out of it, they have an anecdotal story about an afterlife. But I can't see how it's any different than before you were born, which I did not find particularly objectionable. Oblivion sounds kind of peaceful.
Here's an interesting one from Maria. How would society work if religion didn't exist?
Well, you know, these days society would work a lot better if religion didn't exist, and all you have to do is look at the wars that have been started by religion, and you know, there's some people who will say that every war everywhere has always been started by religions for religious reasons. So we've identified religion as a net negative on society, and I think if people are more educated, then a rising tide floats all boats, as they say, and religion will die away on its own, and society will absolutely be fine. The people who say that what's wrong with society today is less religion are plain stupid. The fact is that America, U.S. of A, is more religious already, but we have more problems. So how is more religion going to help?
Running low on time, so you want to do a lightning round?
Lightning round?
Yeah, you ready?
I guess, yeah.
Okay. Were you a train conductor?
No. I like trains.
Will we ever be able to bend time?
Maybe. Time doesn't exist.
Someone who talks to the Holy Spirit, comma, mentally ill? Question mark.
Not necessarily.
Do you believe dinosaurs were real?
I don't have to believe dinosaurs were real. They have evidence upon evidence upon evidence that dinosaurs were real. They were real.
Okay. Getting religious parents to stop pushing on kids.
That's it's going to be a society change. It's not going to happen all once. It's just about education again.
What's your views on eugenics?
Eugenics?
Yeah,
This is like forming like test tube babies and stuff, and making like kids the way you want them.
No, I think eugenics is like the.
What's eugenics?
Is that the thing where like Hitler was doing eugenics? Is that right? Maybe we'll have to look it up.
I don't know. Sorry.
Okay. Beatles or Rolling Stones?
Beatles.
Was religion created for money and control?
Partly, yeah.
Do you entertain simulation theory?
Yeah. Again, science fiction. It's fun. No evidence for it.
Okay, I think that's it. Do you want to tell them where they can find you?
Yeah, find us everywhere on TikTok, on Facebook. Go to Cafe Press and get some gear. There's a button on the Facebook page. And we're on Twitter. We're on Instagram.
And the TikTok page.
And the TikTok page will have the Cafe Press on it too. And we have a YouTube channel that's got a lot more content. We generally post these fast videos there too. But there's a lot more content on the YouTube channel that's longer too. And some of it's interesting and some of it's fun.
All right, we're going to end now.
Thanks for joining.